Hello everyone and welcome to Project Yonder. This is Darren Mart, the developer of the project, and in this video I'll show you how to start creating your very first Yonder map. So let's get right to it. The first thing you'll want to do is go to projectyonder.com/register and set up a new account with a username, email, and password, and then click register. This will take you to a screen that shows which maps you have access to, and since you're a new user at this point, you have no maps to edit. So really your only option is to create a new map. And voila! A few seconds later, a brand new map is created and it's waiting for you to customize it. Alright, let's quickly go over the major pieces of the interface. At the very top we have the timeline, which is the same timeline other people will see when they're navigating your map. You can click on individual segments. You can drag the timeline back and forth. You can click the navigation buttons or press the left or right arrow keys. At the top left we have the options button, which toggles the visibility of the menu, and in this case we're looking at the construction kit version of the menu. People viewing your map will see a different menu. And you have search at the top right, which works the same way here as it does when you're viewing the map. Alright, so let's get started. When you create a new map, a placeholder image will be added as your default background. And as you can see, our first step is to upload at least one background image of our own. So let's click on the images link, pick the image type of background. We'll click browse, and it just so happens I have some images on standby, including a background image. So we'll pick that image, we will click on upload, wait for the confirmation, and then close the dialog. Now to actually apply the background image, we'll want to use the overlays menu. First thing we'll see is a list of overlays associated with the current segment of the timeline, and temp background.jpg is the placeholder we see in the background. So let's click that entry and change the image. The first setting is image type, and there are very important distinctions here between background overlays and standard overlays. Background images will always be stretched to fit the browser window, and they'll always be at the lowest z-index, in other words behind everything else. Now this is a very important step, and you'll want to take some time to experiment with different images. As the user changes the browser window, you might end up with a gray gutter area at the bottom, which may or may not be a problem depending on your preference. In another map that I'm working on, I purposely chose an image that was just as tall as it was wide to avoid the gutter area at the bottom. And just keep in mind that if you change your background image after adding markers and overlays, you may need to retrofit that content. Alright, we'll go back into the overlay settings and change the image to the one we just uploaded and click save. And there you have it, our map has a new background. Now for the purpose of this demo, let's pretend that we're documenting places that we traveled to in the past, and we'll start with the year 2007. And in that year we traveled to 3 places, France, Peru, and Australia. So as you might expect, the first step is to start placing markers. So let's do that using the markers menu. We'll just click add marker, and when the new marker appears, let's get this dialog out of the way, we'll drag the new marker to a destination, drop it, give it a title, and save. And we'll repeat the process for all 3 destinations. Here's a marker for Peru. And last but not least, here's one for Australia. Alright, so far so good, but you'll notice if you click on the markers, nothing happens. And that makes sense because we haven't associated any content with them yet. And that content will come in the form of entries. So we'll use the entries menu and click on the add entry button. And we'll use this form to enter new entries. You can enter the entries using HTML or plain text, whichever you prefer. And it just so happens I have sample entries on standby, and I'll plug them in right now, one for each of our destinations. Alright, so now as you probably guessed, all we need to do is associate those markers with the entries. We'll go back into the markers menu and we will assign the entries to those markers one by one. And now, sure enough, when you click on the markers, you will get pop-ups with the content we provided earlier. Now, the story that isn't really told here is that we visited all three places over the course of one whirlwind vacation, but we can create a visual relationship between these markers by linking them together. So let's go back to the markers menu. We started in France and then we went to Peru, so we'll go into the marker for France and we'll link it to the Peru marker. And now you'll see a line connecting the two. And then we went from Peru to Australia, so we'll go in and link those two markers the same way. And you'll notice that if we go back in and change the position of one of those markers, the lines actually update themselves accordingly, and we'll cancel that. Alright, so the marker lines are helpful, but there must be a more creative way to show the order in which we visited these places, right? And that's where overlays can really come in handy. But before we can add those overlays, we'll need to upload a couple images. So let's do that first in the Images menu. And now that we've uploaded those images, we can switch to the Overlays menu and add a new overlay. And this time we want the overlay type. We'll choose our image. We'll drag the overlay to the right position and we'll save. And we'll repeat the same steps for the second overlay. And there we go. A fun way to show what kind of year we had in 2007, and it only took us a few minutes.